Hello and welcome to Polyplane.com. Today we're going to be doing a plugin review that's specific to Rhino. So if you're not using Rhino, the video won't help you out too much today. But if you are, and I assume a lot of you are, it's actually a really useful tool for visualization purposes, and we're going to get into it. It's called Edge Softening. You can find it at wiki.mcneil.com/lab/edge softening. The plugin link is down below. You can download it and check it out. Now, one quick thing, in order to use it, you have to have the Rhino 4 service release 3 or later and the Rhino RDK to run it. Rhino RDK, which is linked to it, it's a development kit, which people make all sorts of cool plugins for Rhino, and this is how they do it. So you'll have to download this and install it, and there will be a link to that as well. And then once you have that installed, you can install Edge Softening. So let's take a look at it. So the way you'd go about installing this plugin is right-clicking on the render globe to bring up your options, clicking on Plugins, and then click Install, and then just click on your plugin, in this case Edge Softening, and open it, and it'll install, and click OK, and you're done. What's going to happen is when you select an object in your properties window, you can then click down on Edge Softening, turn this on, and it'll give sort of a faux fillet to your geometry. Now, the higher I go with this number, say I bring this up to 4, this is a 10 by 10 by 10 cube, and click off of it, it's going to severely deform this. So I recommend keeping this between 0.1 and like 0.8 for something that's within this size. Anything larger than that, it's going to severely distort your geometry. So the reason this is so useful as a plugin is because a lot of times you're just visualizing your model and not actually like using it for manufacturing purposes or whatever, and it'll actually save you a lot of headache as far as file size is concerned. So having Edge Softening on and you have something with a bunch of fillets on it, it's actually smaller if you just display the mesh as a fillet versus actually doing a fillet. I've got two poly surfaces here. One of them I have edge surfacing on, and the other it's just filleted. So if we look at this in the shaded view, you can see there's the actual fillet surfaces versus the mesh, which just has a display of fillet surfaces. Now if you zoom in close enough, you can actually see it's actually distorting the mesh a little bit. There's a couple of options within here. You can have these be chamfers, you can turn off and turn on faceting for the fillets, and these are just levels of display. But it's a really nice, gentle way to just give your model that extra something when you're visualizing it. If I render these, which I've done here, I'll bring up the rendering, you can see when they're rendered though, the one with the actual fillets actually renders with fillets. The one that doesn't stays sharp, so you lose your geometry. So you might be asking yourself, well, if you're going to just lose everything, why even install it in the first place? Well, the cool thing is you can actually type the command extract softened edge mesh, and it'll make a mesh based off of that fillet. So now if I were to render this, you can see that the mesh actually is rendering now with the fillets. So it's a really good way to create fake fillets for visualization purposes, and if you actually need to render them, you need to run the softened edge mesh command to make that work. Otherwise, it's more of a display feature, which is really useful because when you have a bunch of geometry that has a lot of fillets on it, and those fillets are just really small, they can actually start to eat up a lot of your processing power because the computer has to figure out all those curves, and curves are a lot harder for a computer to figure out than straight edges. So anyway, so if you have something like this where there's a bunch of intersecting geometry, it's really great way to create some really subtle edges. I don't know if you might remember from a few weeks ago, I was talking about looking at the edges of corners and fillets and chamfers and stuff, and I was talking about how everything around you has sort of a subtle rollover. It's just the nature of manufacturing and how things work. Look at the edge of your monitor or your your keyboard or your phone or whatever, and those things that appear like they're hard edges actually have like a small radius on them. So for visualization purposes, the edge softening plugin is really awesome, and I highly recommend you check it out. Now this is, again, like I was saying, this is a plugin for Rhino, so if you're in some other software like SolidWorks or 3D Max or whatever, they're actually really good about fillets, and so is Rhino, but this tool kind of just speeds the workflow up for a lot of people for this sort of work. So anyway, I hope you check it out, and I hope you enjoy it. I've been using it for a couple of years now. I can't wait for them to integrate it into the next version of Rhino. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and have a great day, and I'll check you next week. Bye.